Hi there and welcome to the briefing room. I'm ABC News political director Rick Klein, joined here by my colleagues Tara Palmieri and Mary Alice Parks. And we have a lot of fast-moving developments on this historic day in Washington. Things are moving at both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue with the Supreme Court right behind us. Of course, the swing vote very much in question. And right across the street here at the Capitol, just moments ago, a couple of big developments in the Supreme Court nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. A day after that day-long hearing, we have news from the Senate Judiciary Committee to move his nomination forward by the narrowest of margins to the floor. But a big asterisk, guys, that has been appended to this by Senator Jeff Flake. He doesn't want any movement on this until we see the FBI investigation.
I mean, it was an incredibly fluid situation. I was texting with aides during the moment who were saying they didn't know what was going to happen next, moment to moment. And I think it's important to break apart what you were just talking about. On the one hand, Brett Kavanaugh's nomination moving forward through the process. The nomination moving out of committee with a vote on partisan lines. On the other hand, this big caveat about whether or not his nomination will pass on a final vote on the floor. Jeff Flake essentially holding his vote hostage if there's not an agreement about an FBI investigation.
It's very clear that McConnell doesn't have the votes. We wouldn't be here right now if he had the votes. And it's interesting because all along, senators on the committee and outside of the committee have always been looking to Flake, thinking that he would be the one to possibly tank this. And, you know, in committee hearings, sources told me that they were in private meetings that he would say that he needed more time to think about this, that Dr. Ford needed to be accommodated. And, you know, he's not beholden to McConnell. He's not beholden to Trump or the Republican establishment. He said that he's going to retire. He's really able to go out there on his own as long as he has another senator to go out there with him. And we've heard from Murkowski that she also plans to make a decision after the FBI investigation.
And let's take a listen to what he said just moments ago in the Senate Judiciary Committee, explaining why he was voting for this nomination, but he has a big condition.
I think it would be proper to delay the floor vote for up to, but not more than 1 week, in order to let the FBI continue to do an investigation limited in time and scope to the current allegations that are there, and limited in time to no more than 1 week. And I will vote to advance the bill to the floor with that understanding. And I've spoken to a few other members who on my side of the aisle that may be supportive as well. But that's my position. I think that that we ought to do what we can to make sure that that we do all due diligence with a nomination this important. And I want to say that this committee has acted properly, and the chairman has bent over backwards to do investigations from this committee and to delay this vote in this committee for a week so that that Ms. Ford, Dr. Ford, could be heard, and she was yesterday. So that's with that agreement, I will vote to advance the bill to the floor.
And let's bring in our senior national correspondent, Terry Moran, who covers the Supreme Court, and you followed all the hearings yesterday. Terry, what does this mean from Senator Flake to now? How much power does he have here, and what's the import of potentially delaying this by a week?
Well, first, he's got as much power as he has in concert with other senators. Remember, he himself cannot block the nomination, but as he stated before the committee, he has the agreement of some other senators. Senator Manchin, Democrat of Virginia, a red state Democrat, he's already come out and said he supports Flake's call for a week-long FBI investigation, as does Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And as those senators come in, those centrist senators, they control the balance of power. Now, what does it mean? Well, it depends on what they can turn up. If they are able to clear or reach no conclusion that implicates Brett Kavanaugh at all in Dr. Ford's allegation, or you heard Jeff Flake say all the allegations that are out there right now, that includes Deborah Ramirez and Julie Swetnick as well, well, then the vote will move forward. But it's also possible that something else will turn up. This benefits Brett Kavanaugh as well, simply because the Democrats, if they take over the House, were going to go after him on the Supreme Court with subpoena power to look into some of these issues anyway.
I think that's a really important point that Terry's making there at the end. It seemed to me that Democrats had changed their tact a little bit today. They were saying, okay, fine, if you don't want to get into what happened 30 years ago, you can agree that if he is confirmed, it's going to be a real cloud over the Supreme Court, a political fight that continues. People are questioning whether or not the Supreme Court would be neutral arbitrators of the law. And I think in some ways, Democrats found more success making that argument that there needed to be an investigation to keep the Supreme Court pure in some way, less partisan.
But Kavanaugh was asked this by Democrats several times yesterday. He kept resisting that. He kept saying, I'll do what the committee wants, but he was asked over and over again, just will you submit to an FBI investigation, call for an FBI investigation? He said no because he wanted this
he
committee
didn't
to take
say
it
yes.
over. Right, he didn't say yes. He said no by not saying yes.
But at the same time, that the more time that there is to look into Kavanaugh, who knows what will come out? Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, claims to have more information, more details. We don't know what will come out, even though we know the investigation is only about Dr. Ford.
And already you've had some classmates of his at Yale that have raised their hand and said, okay, the way he's characterizing his past, I don't know about that incident, but I did know him as a heavy drinker. There's a lot of people that FBI agents could potentially talk to.
So we're going to talk about President Trump's role in this in a moment, but more immediately it falls to the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. He's the guy that scheduled a floor vote tomorrow, a procedural vote to see these things through. At this stage, it's hard to imagine that taking place. But Terry Moran, does he have any maneuverability with this? I mean, he's the Majority Leader. He gets to control the floor schedule. But given where the votes line up, does McConnell have an option but to delay by at least a couple of days?
He's going to have to delay it and ask President Trump to call for an FBI, to order an FBI investigation. The FBI works for the executive branch. The president's the head of the executive branch, and so it's in President Trump's power to do this, as it always has been. McConnell might want to try to play chicken with some of these senators. I'm going to call the vote anyway. If you aren't there, you'll lose with your constituents. But he's not that kind of senator. I think we're going to get a delay. Now, the FBI is limited in what it can find. You know, Rachel Mitchell, who was the veteran sex crimes prosecutor from Arizona that Republicans brought in, at the end of the day, she said if she were prosecuted and the same set of facts came to her, she would not be able to proceed with a prosecution of Brett Kavanaugh, as happens a lot. These are very, very old allegations, unfortunately. There aren't a lot of witnesses to go to. Their memories are very difficult to recall with any precision, and a prosecutor has to be confident of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not the standard here. The other problem is Mark Judge, the key witness. He was in the room, allegedly, according to Dr. Ford, egging Brett Kavanaugh on. But he has already said he has no recollection. He's a recovering alcoholic. And he's somebody who, if he does have any criminal liability, is going to take the Fifth Amendment before the FBI. And so they might not be able to get anything out of him. Nevertheless, this is more proper process in looking at allegations like this, and that, I think, is one of the things Senator Flake wanted to see.
And we mentioned President Trump. He was asked about this just moments after. There's a fast-moving day here at both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, and the president was asked about the hearing yesterday as well as the prospect of the FBI getting back involved in this, something he's ruled out in the past. But take a listen to President Trump today.
I thought her testimony was very compelling, and she looks like a very fine woman to me. Very fine woman. And I thought that Brett's testimony, likewise, was really something that I haven't seen before. It was incredible. It was an incredible moment, I think, in the history of our country. But certainly she was a very credible witness. She was very good in many respects. And I think that I don't know if this is going to continue onward or are we going to get a vote. But again, I'm here, so I'm not out there watching because I can't be. Out of great respect, although maybe we'll go watch together, okay? We'll watch together. But I think it will work out very well for the country. I just want it to work out well for the country. If that happens, I'm happy.
Tara Palmieri, it seemed like a pretty even measured tone from President Trump. He did not attack the woman from yesterday, Christine Blasey Ford. He was very careful in talking about how impressive she was, in addition to how impressive Judge Kavanaugh was.
This is a different tone from President Trump. He's showing some restraint. And he, seems to be acknowledging that he needs to give these senators some political cover, and attacking her does not help them in any way. I know last night at a fundraiser for the NRCC, he said privately that he felt bad for her, but at the same time thought that she was hurt by someone, but it wasn't Brett Kavanaugh. And, he also called Brett Kavanaugh a fighter, and he relished in his performance. He was proud of the way he fought back, but he did admit publicly to an entire crowd of Republicans it was difficult to watch. He didn't specify who was difficult to watch, not Dr. Ford or Brett Kavanaugh, but from what you're hearing, he's showing a bit of sensitivity and acknowledgement that she was very credible.
We want to bring into the conversation now Samantha Geary, who's a friend of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, was in that hearing room for those hours yesterday where Dr. Ford testified. And Samantha, first of all, the reaction to how the president has reacted to all of this. Have you spoken at all in the aftermath of yesterday's hearing to your friend Dr. Ford, and how has she taken these last 24 hours since she stepped away from the witness stand?
Well, I haven't spoken to her today, but I spent a couple hours with her yesterday after her testimony, and it was really nice to see the color come back into her face and the light come back into her eyes. And by the end of the day, she was very much relieved and exhausted, but I think ready to turn this over to the American people to decide how they want to handle this.
And of course, she was insisting from very early on that there be an FBI investigation. We now have news out of Capitol Hill that enough senators are intent on making that happen, that it appears like it's likely to. What kind of cooperation is it your sense that she is prepared to offer? Does she have other information? What kind of information is she ready to give to the FBI if indeed there's a full-fledged investigation?
She will continue to cooperate as she has from the very beginning. Just answering the questions that they have and making sure that she has provided them with all the information that she has.
And did you watch the second half of the hearing with Brett Kavanaugh?
I haven't been able to watch it in its entirety. I've seen, sections of it, so I have a pretty good idea of what his testimony looked like and conveyed.
Do you know if Professor Ford watched any of it? And what were your reactions just from the whole day?
The whole day? Oh my God, it was such an intense day. Her testimony as a friend, it was just incredibly painful to sit there and have to go through that. The raw emotion in the room was incredibly powerful. So we were all a bit relieved when she got past her opening statement, and we felt that she was able to relax a little bit after that and get back to just answering the questions. After we all left the hearing room and left Capitol Hill, we were able to all just sort of take a deep breath. We were just all incredibly proud of her. She saw this through. She saw this through despite tremendous personal sacrifice and upheaval. And I think that she's settled. She's settled on all that. She knows that she did her best to convey this information in a responsible way, and that was really all that she could do. That's what she set out to do.
Have you spoken to her since the vote? How is she feeling about it?
I have not spoken to her since the vote.
And Samantha Geary, if you could give us a sense of her mindset around all of this. Does she feel now as if her voice was heard adequately? If senators have listened to this, have weighed what she said, weighed what he said, and they end up putting Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, would she be at peace with that?
Well, I think that we all have a responsibility to do the right thing, regardless of how it turns out. So I think she'll be at peace with the calculated risks that she took and what she felt her responsibility was. She'll have a clear conscience on that. I'm not sure that the rest of Congress will have a clear conscience on this if they go forward. But she fulfilled her civic duty. She did what she had to do. So I'm not sure what else we could ask of her. And now she has to rebuild her life, and I hope that we all support her as she does that.
What do you think? How would you feel if he becomes Justice Brett Kavanaugh?
Well, I think I'll be disappointed in the American system. I'm already disappointed. I think that one thing we can probably all agree on is this has not been well handled. She has, the fact that there wasn't a FBI investigation opened up was important. That we haven't had all of the facts gathered in this, and that it really did come down to this sort of he said, she said yesterday with a lot of emotion. That might be good reality TV, but it's not good governance.
The Republicans seem to paint the picture that the Democrats were taking advantage of Dr. Christine Ford. Does she feel that way?
No.
All right, Samantha Geary, a friend of Dr. Ford, in the hearing room yesterday. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks for checking in over the last couple of days. It's been very, very, very worthwhile for all of us, I think, to hear this perspective. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And Terry Moran, I want to flip back over to you to give your sense of how yesterday played, because it was an extraordinary day. We talk about days where things unexpected happens, new things happen, but to have that back-to-back testimony, quite emotional on the part of Christine Blasey Ford, emotional on the part of Brett Kavanaugh, the country experienced something, and a lot of people tuned in. What's your sense of how things stand now 24 hours later?
Well, it's a moment, isn't it? I'm old enough to have covered the Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill hearings. The country was more clueless about these issues than men and many women. Not all women, of course, but I think that if they were clueless about it, there was a different attitude about how people handled them. And the fact that Anita Hill came forward and spoke what she said was, a hostile work environment created by sexual harassment. And she spoke it to the United States Senate. A lot of people didn't know how to do with that. Today, people do. Millions of people do know what to do with that. And it's to stop and reckon with it and hold people accountable for it. That's what the Me Too moment is all about. And I just think this is an irresistible force. One of the reasons I think we saw President Trump so complimentary of Dr. Ford after he ripped her previously in tweets is that he's got his people coming to him saying, boss, we are going to get clobbered in the midterms if we are seen to be ignoring or shunting aside this person who has come forward with a credible accusation like this. And it may be that the best thing at this point President Trump would want, although he denied this, but that the base is now riled up by the anger and the rage of Judge Kavanaugh, who says he is a man falsely accused. But if he were to fail somehow, well, then President Trump could have his cake and eat it too. He'd have the base riled up, but he wouldn't have all the anger directed at of the people who would be angry about a Justice Kavanaugh.
All right, Terry Moran covers the Supreme Court for us at ABC. We appreciate you joining us here this afternoon. Want to check in briefly with Ben Siegel up on Capitol Hill, just a couple hundred feet away from us, but roaming the halls of Congress all day today. What is the latest on what the Flake coalition looks like, how solid that is, and do we have any update at all on when we might expect votes on the Senate floor?
Rick, we're seeing some Republican senators trickle out of this meeting with members of the Judiciary Committee and leadership, and we're seeing the tentative outline of what this Flake agreement is. John Cornyn, the number 2 Senate Republican, came out and told reporters that the Senate will be in tomorrow, and it appears like there will be a motion to proceed vote tomorrow. Basically, that means a vote to advance this nomination. But there also seems to be an agreement to have some sort of supplemental background check as well through the FBI. So what we could see is a potentially, assuming this goes according to plan and this keeps moving, we could possibly still see a confirmation vote next week on Judge Kavanaugh. So they've made an agreement that allows everybody to save face. They have not stopped the clock on the Kavanaugh nomination, but Jeff Flake has also helped to slow the Senate, helped to really cool some of the partisan tensions around here for a little bit, and sort of take some more time to mull this over. And I think another point that's important to make here is that Flake, in doing this, it's also a very clever tactical move, because in acquiescing to the demand from Democrats for an FBI investigation, he's potentially inoculating Republicans from the primary criticism that Democrats had, that they didn't do their due diligence in looking into Brett Kavanaugh. Because potentially, if this FBI investigation comes back and they find nothing, they say nothing to see here, or there's nothing conclusive presented, then Flake and other Republicans can say, see, the FBI looked into this, and now it's our turn to vote.
I think that's fair. I think that's something that we've heard legal analysts talk about for the last week, that in theory, an FBI investigation has the potential to help all parties.
Indeed, and of course it's going to fall to President Trump to pull the trigger on this FBI investigation if that's what he wants.
It sounds like he's willing to go along with it, but as we know, we could get an evening tweet, a morning tweet that shows a change in mind, but right now he seems to be going along for the ride.
Maybe he should have been nicer to Senator Flake for all those many months. We want to close today with a pretty extraordinary moment that happened just a few hours ago at the Capitol. Everyone was waiting on Senator Jeff Flake. We knew he was the key vote on the committee today, and he came out moments before the committee went into session to announce that he intended to support Brett Kavanaugh's nomination. But as he was making his way to the Senate floor, take a look at a little of what transpired. He was held up on the elevator on his way to the vote.
On live TV.
On live TV.
You just released a press statement. You don't have the courage to give them an answer?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you's not an answer, Senator.
Thank you.
And ABC News Live had an opportunity to talk to Anna Maria Achila a little while ago about her decision to confront Senator Flake like that and to crystallize a lot of the emotion that has surrounded this in that direct conversation with the United States Senator. This is a little of what she had to say.
I went to Jeff Flake's office because I think of him as someone who sometimes chooses his consciousness over his party. And I thought that maybe he was the person that could demand a longer, better process instead of just jamming Brett Kavanaugh's nomination through the Judiciary Committee and the Senate.
And Tara and Mary Alice, that was a pretty powerful moment. Representative democracy, we talk so much about the power of the senators on this committee, but the fact that an individual citizen had this meaningful interaction with a senator at this key moment.
But it was a less risky move for Jeff Flake. He's not running for re-election, and in fact, he wouldn't win in his district. And while he did take a political risk, a calculated political risk, one that is actually going to save some face for other more vulnerable Republicans, let's also acknowledge that he is not running again for election.
I think we should also acknowledge that something about that woman and her tone and her story reminds us that what happened this week is much bigger than the halls of Congress. It has felt like that since the beginning. It's been another moment in a year-long Me Too movement, a cultural shift in the country. And there are victims of sexual assault and friends of victims of sexual assault that have been watching what's happened here and not concerned necessarily or primarily with whether or not one guy gets confirmed, but how the country responds to allegations like this.
We have been witnessing history all week long. It continues, and as we go into the weekend, it will continue even more. All right, Tara Palmieri and Mary Alice Parks, our thanks. Thanks to you for watching. I'm Rick Klein. Stay tuned all day long at ABC News. Download the ABC News app. Thank you for watching The Briefing Room.